Welcome to my messy studio, everyone. My name is Mark, and I'm an artist, an art professor, and a fountain pen enthusiast. And in this video, we're going to revisit one of the most popular pens with artists, the TWSBI Eco. About 5 years ago, I made a video talking about the contents of this portable sketching kit, which contains 5 TWSBI Ecos, where I sing the praises of this pen and explain why I felt it was the perfect pen for the artist. The question is, 5 years deeper into my fountain pen addiction, having tried I don't know how many other pens, do I still feel the same way? Is it time to dethrone the Eco, at least from this pen case, and replace it with another pen? And if so, what pen would that be? Let's answer this pressing question. I'm not sure if people who are new to fountain pens realize just how different the fountain pen universe was as little as 10 years ago, and how revolutionary the TWSBI Eco was when it appeared on the market. At the time, there were very few pens with built-in filling systems, and they were expensive, the cheapest options being the Pelican 200 and the Pilot Custom 92, pens that cost hundreds of dollars. The TWSBI Eco was only $30, falling well into the budget category. But unlike other budget pens coming out of China, which often had absolutely horrific nibs, this pen came with an excellent high-quality nib made by the German nib manufacturer Wolff, nibs which are usually available only on higher-end pens. If this wasn't enough, it also featured a thoroughly original, modern-looking design with a clear demonstrator finish, again a rarity at the time, which allowed you to see your ink levels and exactly what kind of ink was being used. The Eco was a phenomenon at the time, and in many ways still is. Let's take a quick look at it and review all the things that made it great. Besides the low price, the wonderfully performing nib, the built-in piston filling mechanism, the pen has a number of other advantages that make it ideal for artists. It's slender and lightweight, only 22 grams, which means you can pack a number of them into a compact case like this one and still have plenty of room for all your other stuff. The long and tapered grip section is passively comfortable, and the slender barrel can also be gripped comfortably when you need to create longer strokes. Another advantage, particularly for artists, is how well the cap seals, not only because of the tight inner cap, but also because of the rubber O-ring at the bottom of the grip section threads. My Ecos are usually filled with one kind of waterproof ink or another, and such inks are prone to clogging, especially if the pens sit unused for extended periods. While I used to use these pens almost every day, with the amount of other pens in my collection, my TWSBI Ecos sometimes sit unused for months, and yet they start right up. In short, these are fantastic pens, affordable, reliable, and well-performing, and I stand by my effusive review of them. But they do come with some drawbacks, things that have come to the forefront now that I'm a more experienced user of pens with a much larger collection. The nibs and feeds on these pens pop right out for easy cleaning, but the grip section on them does not unscrew. So in order to clean them more deeply, you have to use a plastic wrench provided with a pen to unscrew the piston mechanism. Taking the pen apart is fairly easy, but putting it together again can be tricky, and you'll probably need to watch an online tutorial on how to do it properly. Even if reassembly was easier, unscrewing the back of the pen often is not recommended since it puts stress on the plastic, something we'll touch on more in a bit. For artists who switch inks often and use waterproof inks that can be difficult to clean, a grip section that unscrews is a huge plus, and the lack of it is a significant demerit for the TWSBI Eco. The next significant drawback is the nib size. TWSBI Ecos use an unusual number 4 size nib that is found on a number of other TWSBI models, including their Go and the Mini, and as far as I know, nowhere else. This means that if you want to use the Eco with a specialty nib, you're mostly out of luck. So, for example, to use a Fude nib in an Eco, I had to order one from fpnibs.com. So, while the nibs on TWSBI Ecos are excellent and available in a decent range of sizes from extra fine to a 1.1mm stub, pens which use a number 5 or a number 6 size nibs are much more versatile. So far, the drawbacks have been minor, but here is a major one. While after something like 7 years of heavy use, none of my TWSBI Ecos have fallen apart. Some of them have developed cracks. The cracks on this one are significant and worrying, but because they're on the back of the barrel behind the piston, so far it has not affected the working of the pen. Perhaps demanding a lifetime of service out of a $30 pen is unreasonable, but TWSBI really needs to get its act together, especially now that there are plenty of well-built pens at the same price point, if not cheaper. The question is, have any rivals come along which could replace my TWSBI Ecos in my portable kit? Well, it's still a very tough competitor. We're looking for pens in that $30 to $50 price range with excellent nibs, demonstrator bodies, built-in filling mechanisms, super reliable performance, and slender profile. 3 pens made by Asfin come to mind. The first is the P36, the second is the V126, and the last one is the P50. Let's look at the P36 first. The P36 is a piston filler with similar dimensions. The titanium parts make this pen a bit heavier, but also more substantial feeling, and its slightly wider, textured grip section is perhaps more comfortable. The main advantage of this pen, however, is that it uses a number 6 size nib, so you can use it with a huge number of other nib options. And like the Eco, the nib and feed pop right out, so instead of having to unscrew a housing unit, you can pop the nib in and out very quickly. The nib in here is not made by Jowo, but is an Asfin branded nib. But for $10 more, you can get one fitted with a Bach nib, which to my mind is a slightly better option than Jowo. But here is the thing, you might not want the upgrade. It used to be that the Jowo nibs available on TWSBI models were far and away better than anything you can get on a budget pen coming from China. And if I ordered a Chinese pen, I would almost immediately see if the nib could be switched out for something better. This is absolutely no longer the case, and many of the nibs on budget pens are absolutely superb. For example, the Asfin branded nib that comes with the P36 is every bit as good as the nib made by Jowo, which by the way, these days are also manufactured in China. This pen does have some drawbacks, however. The first, that at 32 grams, it's almost 10 grams heavier than the Eco, which can add up if you have a number of them in a pen case. Second, when posted, this pen posts very shallowly, becoming unusably back heavy. And lastly, and most significantly, the pen doesn't seal nearly as well as the Eco and will dry up on you more frequently. And while the nib and feed do pop out for easy cleaning, like the Eco, the grip section does not unscrew, so for deep cleaning, you'll have to remove the piston mechanism from the back. Overall, this is a very good pen with marginally better build quality than the Eco, but not quite the Eco killer. Then there's the excellent Asfin V126, also in the same price range. This pen is a vacuum filler, which means additional ink capacity and extra safety when traveling. It's also relatively light, being only 7 grams heavier than the TWSBI Eco when completely filled with ink. The pen has a grip section that's wider and more comfortable than the Eco, and also posts deeply and securely. A significant advantage is that the grip section in this pen does unscrew, which makes it much easier to clean thoroughly than the Eco, and also allows you to fill this pen with an eyedropper, something very useful when ink levels in your bottle are too low for regular filling. And should you want to clean the pen fully, the vacuum mechanism can be unscrewed from the back and is much easier to put back than a piston mechanism. This pen only comes with an Asfin branded nib, which again is every bit as good as the Jowo. However, since it uses a number 6 size, it can be swapped out with a specialty nib. In this pen I have a SteelFlex nib from fpnibs.com, and in this one I have a Fude nib that I made out of an inexpensive Moonman nib. These pens I think are a little less prone to drying out than the P36, but still cannot compare to the TWSBI Eco, but again, very few pens can. Lastly, we have the often overlooked Asfin V50, another piston filling pen that hasn't received a lot of attention, perhaps because it was released in only 3 finishes. This one and another 2 that in my opinion are pretty unattractive and also not demonstrators. Out of the pens I'm going to show you, this one probably comes closest to the Eco overall. The pen is almost the same length and only a gram heavier, and has a piston filling mechanism. Another similarity is that the grip section on this pen does not unscrew. This is a shame because that would give the P50 an instant advantage over the Eco in terms of ease of cleaning. Like the other two Asphene pens, it uses a number 6 standard sized nib, which is excellent. This is an underrated pen that deserves way more love. It has everything I adore about the Eco: good weight and ergonomics, good ink capacity, and a relatively slender profile, which makes it perfect for a pen case. And like the Asphene V126, this has a really cool frosted gray finish, which is perhaps not as practical as the perfectly clear Eco, but still clear enough to see your ink levels. So, among these candidates, are there any obvious TWSBI Eco killers among them? Well, the P36 is an excellent pen, but having 5 of them in a single case might make things too heavy. The P50 is also an excellent pen, but other than the advantage of being able to switch nibs, is about equal to the Eco. So I think the closest candidate is the Asphene V126. This versatile, well-built pen not only has more ink capacity, it's also better for travel, is easier to clean, and has better build quality than the TWSBI Eco, and also uses a standard size nib which can be switched out with many other nib options. And unlike the other two Asphene pens, it comes in a variety of colors, so you can buy a bunch of them in different nib sizes and differentiate between them. However, while I already have 3 of these pens, are they going to replace my Eco in my portable kit? Probably no time soon. The Ecos were some of my earliest pen acquisitions, and I'm quite attached to them, and so long as they don't break, I don't see any reason to replace them, considering they work super well. Plus, and I'm aware of the silliness of this statement, but the industrial, utilitarian aesthetic of the Eco is more in line with an art kit like this one. So, for the price, the TWSBI Eco is still an unbeatable value. A piston-filling pen with an excellent JoWo nib that's light, reliable, fairly easy to clean, and has one of the best seals in the fountain pen business. And while over the years I've discovered a large number of pens that I like better, when it comes to putting together a portable set with a number of pens, the TWSBI Eco is still the pen I would recommend. And by the way, it's not entirely true that you can't swap nibs into it. Though the pen uses a number 4 size nib, a number 5 size nib can fit if you apply a few strips of clear tape to the back to ensure a tighter fit. So for example, you can place this number 5.5 size Ultraflex nib from Fountain Pen Revolution into it. The tape in the back keeps the nib in place and ensures enough pressure against the feed to keep the ink moving. Does it work perfectly? No. For that, you're going to need an ebonite feed. I hope you enjoyed this review of the TWSBI Eco, and if you did, please subscribe and enjoy my many other videos on fountain pens and other art materials and techniques, as well as pen and ink drawing instruction. Thanks for watching, and see you back in my studio very soon. Bye for now.